Hello and welcome. My name is Minister Faith. I come to you from Focus Ministry, faithfully observing Christ until sanctified. I am going to continue reading my memoir that God has encouraged me to share. I will pick up from where I left off. Have you ever realized after the wedding that something wasn't right? This was supposed to be my honeymoon, but instead, God began to open my eyes. By the time, the hotel room I'd chosen was meant to be a surprise, a nod to our shared love of Game of Thrones. All rich fabrics and regal tones, a high bed crowned with a mirrored ceiling, a jacuzzi tub nestled off to one side, a small table for two where we ate, our utensils clinging in the stillness. Jasper was eager. I could see it in his eyes, in the way his hands moved with urgency rather than affection. I was trying to talk, trying to put words around how I didn't want to compare this night to the wedding night. This is what I was doing in my head. I'd known decades ago, but something about the air was heavy, unsettled. This wasn't the first room we'd shared, but last night on the eve of our wedding was the first time Jasper had booked a single bed. He'd been relentless, pushing past my boundaries, and I had spent the night resisting him. Now in this room, which was supposed to be a sanctuary and a celebration, that same tension returned, stronger. He asked me to take off my jewelry. I hesitated. I always slept in it. But I wanted to honor this new beginning, so I started removing each piece. I titled this, I Married Him, but that night changed everything. The one bracelet wouldn't budge. Jasper frowned. His fingers were firm as he tried to unfasten it. It wouldn't open. His irritation grew, quiet but sharp. Then he asked me to undress completely. His words came too close, too fast. When we lay down together and his body pressed into mine, he leaned close, breath warm against my ear, and whispered, "You made me wait." A chill sliced through me, not from the words alone, but from the way they landed, like a claim, like a debt being called in. Something inside me recoiled. I tried to focus, to stay grounded, to make the moment sacred, but my mind slipped into shadow. I couldn't find the man who had once moved me with poems and tender melodies. He had vanished. In his place was someone who looked at me as though I owed him something. I wanted to feel joy. I wanted to feel chosen. Instead, I felt trapped. And then, without warning, memories surfaced, unwelcomed, unbidden. The past arrived, unzipped itself, and laid across me like a weight. I was no longer in the present moment. I was inside old terror, old shame. Every part of me screamed no, while my body froze in a desperate attempt to protect itself. I wasn't there with my husband. I was alone in a moment I didn't choose. And I hated that. I didn't feel loved. I hated that. My first time with someone new, in over 30 years felt like betrayal. Not by Jasper totally, but by my hope. My heart and mind were shouting truths my brain was refusing to hear. Jasper was done, and I was just relieved it was over. He caught sight of our reflection in the mirror above the bed, our bodies side by side, and commented on the contrast in our skin tones. Something about the way he said it, offhanded, almost clinical, struck me. The image seared into my mind. Not just the reflection, but the feeling that I was being observed, not cherished. I didn't hear admiration in his voice. I heard distance. He rolled over and went to sleep without another word. I laid next to him, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. I felt like I had just married a stranger. What had I missed? What had changed? I closed my eyes, convincing myself that tomorrow could be better. The next morning, the shift in Jasper lingered like a low hum. I asked if he wanted to shower with me, maybe relax in the jacuzzi before we left, but he declined. No real reason, no warmth in the refusal, just no. We moved through the first part of the honeymoon as if we were checking boxes. We were flying to Florida next. He had a meeting, then we were off to the Florida Keys. I pinned my hope to that, a change of scenery, a fresh beginning. Maybe a spark would come back to life in him when he touched Florida soil. We'd been driving about 20 minutes towards Junior's house, where we'd meet up with his mother before flying out, when I realized I left my shoes in the hotel closet. I turned to Jasper and I told him, I said, I left my shoes back at the hotel. I paused, expecting him to say we could turn around. He didn't. He glanced at me and said, oh, you can pick them up when you come back to New Jersey. Just like that. I sat in stunned silence, watching the road stretch endlessly ahead of us. Something inside of me balked. James would have turned that car around without a question. He would have insisted I not walk out the door without what I needed. I didn't want to compare, but the contrast was undeniable. I called the hotel myself, still holding out hope. The woman on the phone kindly confirmed she found them in the closet and said she'd hold them until I came back. I thanked her, but my heart was bruised. It wasn't just the shoes, it was the way Jasper hadn't even considered going back. The way he kept driving as if my needs were a detour, not part of the journey. Something was off. The man I married wasn't the man I thought I knew. There was a chill in his response, a current of dismissal in the way he brushed past my feelings. We reached Junior's house and lingered there for about an hour, making light conversation, but something was off in the air. Even Jasper and his mother seemed at odds. Curt words, attention I hadn't seen before. Their usual bond felt strained, brittle. At the airport, we sat for 2 more hours. I kept counting in my head how many times we could have gone back for the shoes in that space of waiting. I had nothing left to say to Jasper. The silence between us wasn't peaceful. It was crowded with things unseen. I watched his mother watched him. There was a disapproval in her eyes, just enough to let me know she was noticing the shift too. Jasper, annoyed with her for choosing this airport over Newark, said little, but let his frustration simmer just under the surface. I was in my feelings, no doubt about it, but I wasn't being petty. I was grieving a kind of loss I hadn't anticipated. I had imagined this honeymoon would be about new beginnings. Instead, I was counting the ways I was already shrinking inside this marriage. I sat with my thoughts, trying to adjust my attitude. But the truth pressed in. I didn't like the version of Jasper I was seeing, and I didn't know how to come to terms with that yet. Precious Father, I thank you. I thank you for all that you do, for all that you are. I thank you. I come before you with a heart that is still learning how to trust again. You see what I felt before I could name it. You heard the prayers I didn't have words for. Lord, I ask you to sit with every person listening who feels confused, dismissed, or quietly hurt. Wrap them in your peace, the kind that doesn't rush, doesn't shame, and doesn't demand silence. God, restore what has been shaken. Return clarity where there is fog. Strength where there is weariness. And truth where there has been confusion. Teach us to honor the warnings you give us, not in fear, but in wisdom. Remind us that love never requires us to disappear, and that your plans for us are gentle, protective, and good. If there is healing needed, begin it. If there is courage required, supply it. If there is rest overdue, grant it now. We place every unanswered question in your hands, trusting that you are faithful to reveal what we need when we are ready. Father, I thank you. Thank you for your mercy. I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your loving kindness. I thank you for all that you do. I pray if there is anyone out there who does not know you in the pardon of their sin, that you will draw them unto you. Father, I'm so grateful that I don't have to live my life alone, that you have been the constant in my life. I am grateful for my life. In Jesus' precious name, I do pray. To God be the glory. I dare you to trust God.